This week's edition of Church Media Design TV is sponsored by Print Management Solutions. Welcome to another edition of Church Media Design TV, tips, tricks, and how-to for you, the church media designer. I'm your host, Brad Zimmerman, and every week I'm joined by my favorite bobbleheaded friends. You got it right. We got Sean and Gus from Psych, we got Little Whitey, Colonel Sanders, and of course, Jesus Christ, the Son of the Lord Most High. Well, on this week's edition of Church Media Design TV, we're going to be talking about Photoshop and how to extend your background in Photoshop. And we're not going to do it during using the new Content Aware Fill feature in Adobe CS5. We're going to leave that witchcraft to the witches, and we're going to learn how to do it in older versions of Photoshop for those of you who aren't going to make the upgrade. So I wanted to walk you guys through that. The first thing I wanted to say is I have a bad cough because we've actually been remodeling the basement down here. Actually, that's not the first thing I wanted to say. This is the first thing I wanted to say. I wanted to say thank you. Many of you saw on the blog this past week that Church Media Design was shutting down, but not really. I actually ran into a big problem that we were using so much bandwidth that I was going over a terabyte's worth of bandwidth that we were using every single month. And my overages at the time that I found this out were going to be $500 plus was their estimate for my bandwidth usage. So I just threw out a deal of, check out our sponsors, help me find a better hosting solution. And if you want to donate, you can donate towards offsetting those costs. And the cool thing is, I had checked into it, but a lot of you guys responded with a lot of great ideas, and one of them was blip.tv. Now, blip.tv is a video podcasting host, and I'm actually using that now to host all of the podcast files. And I hope this could be a long-term solution, but for right now, it's at least a temporary solution. So if you're having problems that the podcast isn't downloading as fast as it used to or whatever, please let me know because I'm really curious as to how this fends compared to self-hosting all those files. So we're hosting those on there, and then all of you that donated money, thank you so much. That's going to help offset all of those costs, and I think it actually covered everything that we incurred for this month. So that's really awesome, and I really do thank you guys for that. And we aren't going nowhere. The show's here to stay, and I love doing it. I love helping you guys out, and I love meeting you guys and talking to you. So we're not going anywhere. The other thing I wanted to say is the film festival is changing dates. Now, the film festival was supposed to be done with submissions, but we're extending the submission deadline to May 7th. So you have until May 7th to submit your media, as well as we changed a few rules. So now the sermon package category is just a sermon graphic category. It no longer needs to be in video form. You can just send me a link to the highest quality still of your sermon title, and you can do your submission that way. So those are a few things that I wanted to get out of the way right at the top of the show. So thanks for being awesome fans. It's so awesome to be a part of such a great community. I about said awesome, I think 8 times there. So that's awesome. So if my most awesome bobbleheaded friends are ready, let's get awesome. Well, let's reach into the stockpile and grab you guys some great resources. And the first resource is from bitbox.com, one of my favorite sites. We go to it often, but they have Free Texture Tuesday grab bag number 3. And man, are these some nice looking textures. A lot of these just are, I've never seen a roundup of like 5 textures that I immediately could see design done with. So I think these are just a solid group of textures. So check those out. The next one is from We Function or Function, and that's another design blog. And they have 42 more subtle Photoshop or grunge textured Photoshop brushes. So you can kind of see this is the end result here. and just great looking brush set that really gives a nice vintage look without being overkill. It's not big old paint splatters or big chunks. It's nice subtle grunge or subtle retroness that you can add to your design. So check out wefunction.com. And then last but very not least, from Church Creatives, this is from Bobby Chandler. He's at Sugar Creek Baptist, and he runs churchcreatives.com. And they actually just finished an iPhone app for their church. And instead of spending all of this time and investing money hours and man hours into making this app and calling it good, they actually said, we're going to release the source code for our app to anyone who wants to use it. So this application has 4 main features. You can display recent messages or sermons in video, audio, or both. Which I would hope the video would have audio with it, so that's good that he put both in there. Next is the news tab with an RSS feed. There's a media tab for other videos, and then 2 different ways to get general information such as websites, Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, addresses, and phone numbers. You can test drive the Sugar Creek app using the source code, and you can get the source code for free. But check it out. They did a really good job. They use some built-in stuff like these buttons at the bottom are built-in, part of the GUI deal for the iPhone. But then they did some custom stuff that I think actually looks really nice. And the app as a whole has a really nice feel to it. So if you guys want an iPhone app for your church, that's one alternative. You'll have to know a little bit of programming to get it done, but it's a great way to get yourself started. So check out Church Creatives, WeFunction, and of course, bitbox.com. Let's take a moment to say thank you to our sponsor of Print Management Solutions. If you have a print need, Print Management Solution has your answer/solution. And the coolest part about it all is it's very personally done. So let's say you're a church of 100 or you're a church of 1,000 and you're using your printer to print, let's say, bulletins or handouts or even postcards or something like that. What's going to happen is you'll give them a call and they'll figure out what's the best solution for your print needs. They'll figure out whether or not you should lease a printer or buy a printer, or if you just need ink and toner. And at the end of the day, they're going to save you a lot of money. I've yet to meet somebody who hasn't saved a lot of money using Print Management Solutions. We currently use this at our office, and I love it because we actually now print most of our postcards in-house instead of sending out for them, because it's just easier and it actually ends up costing us less than ordering them and having to wait. And when you're running behind and you want to print something nice last minute, it's nice to be able to do it in-house and not have to worry how many days is it going to get to ship it here and all of that stuff. So check out printmanagementsolutions.biz. You can click sign up and fill in your information and they'll give you a call, or you can just grab the phone number at the bottom and give them a call, and they'd love to figure out what's the best solution for your print needs. So check out Print Management Solutions. Well, as many of you saw last week, we talked about Adobe CS5 that's shipping, and you can actually get the free trials online right now. And it's got a lot of great tools, and Photoshop has a great tool that a lot of people are calling witchcraft. It's called the Content Aware Fill tool. And basically, it makes things that really aren't there. It fills in. You can cut a person out of a wall, all sorts of stuff. We talked about it last week. Well, anyway, I was like, well, it's really awesome and it works really fast, but I've been doing this, and the reason I'm so excited about it is I've been doing this day in and day out for a few years now, that I need to extend a background here or take somebody out there or that kind of thing. So I figured today we would talk about how to actually do some of that background extension and some tricks that I do of extending and making scenes fit the way that I want them to fit. So what you can see here is on the stock exchange, I found this scooter, and our middle school ministry is called Moto, and Moto means movement. And so I thought, what a fun way to do movement with a scooter. It's kind of retro fun. And so I was like, I want this to be like our title graphic. And I'm like, but that's really not good because I need a bunch of space for text. So I need to recreate more wall and more ground and a whole lot of stuff. So this is the image that I ended up with. And that image was made from this and one other one. So you can see here, I went and found one more concrete texture. So I actually used that in conjunction with this other image. So I've downloaded both of those, and as you can see here, we have our two different images. So let's get started. The first thing that I always do is start with a new image, the size I want it to be. So we're gonna go with 1280 by 720. We're gonna do this in widescreen. Maybe your preset would be 1024 by 768 or something like that. So now let's just drag in let's grab our right tool here. So let's drag this guy in, and let's do a little Command T, and that's free transform, and I'm just going to hold Shift and Alt, and that will let me transform proportionately. So the first thing I need to do is decide what size do I want this scooter to end up being. So I mean, I could get away with doing like a big scooter and leaving room for a graphic here. And we could maybe duplicate the walls and just extend the background out a little bit. But I wanted a lot of space. So I'm actually going to make this even smaller. So I'm going to go down to maybe something like this. So that we have a big old wall area to use. So we're going to go with that for right now. That's about 30% of the original image. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get rid of this back wall. Now we could try extend these walls. Easy way that a lot of times I do this is I'll just take a section and I'll do my Control T or Command T on the Mac, and we'll just scale that guy up, and you know, it looks really distorted and doesn't really look right. So I don't really think I want to go with that. So what we're going to do first is we're going to grab our pen tool. We're going to make sure to set it to this one here, which is basically just a path. This is a shape. This is a path. So we want to do the path, and I'm just going to zoom in here on the tire, and we're just going to get started drawing out our selection. So I'm not going to make you guys wait through all of this. We'll use the magic of television to move us a little bit further forward. But if you have any questions about the pen tool, there's an episode called The Pen Tool, Friend or Foe, where we talk all about the pen tool, and it works inside Illustrator and in Photoshop the exact same way. So I've spent the past few minutes going through and creating a nice selection. And this is something you do want to spend time on because it really will help the realism, and Photoshop, again, is all about selection. So you can see here we have our little selection, and you can see I kind of got sloppy down at the bottom here. And the reason being is we actually want to save this road. So that's not a big deal. I did the inside of the bars here and all that. So now we can go to Paths. We have a working path here, and we can actually click this dotted circle, and that's going to say Load Path as Selection. So now we can go back to our layers, and we can actually go down and click on this button here, which is going to add a layer mask, and it's going to use that selection to mask out the layer. Now the cool thing about this is it's non-destructive editing, which is the key to it all. Because now I can grab my brush tool, I'm just going to increase the hardness, and now I can paint back in all this road. And my path here is still intact, so I can actually zoom in, and we'll just do a nice rough estimate of where the road is and where the wall begins. So we'll just kind of, you know, go with this for now. And it's okay if it's not perfect. We really just want that to be there. So now you can see we have our little bike, and it's sitting on a white background, but now we really need to continue that road along. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to duplicate this guy. I'm going to delete the layer mask because we don't need the layer mask. I'm just going to move this over I can use my arrow keys or my mouse or whatever. Then I'm going to use as much real estate as possible so I don't have to have too much repetition. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to watch the line of the ground because the ground's actually kind of going upward a little bit. So we're just going to get our edge lined up down here. Then I'm going to add another layer mask and grab my brush tool. and I'm going to hit X to flip between white and black. And I'm just going to start drawing and getting rid of the stuff that I really don't need, and just keeping the few things that I do need. So I'm just going to do one click and then shift click across. That'll get rid of all of that. And draw a nice straight line for me. And now we'll zoom in down here. And you can see we start to have a little bit of an issue here. We got some tires and some different things in the way. So let's do our first batch of fixing. So what we're going to do first is we're going to grab the clone stamp tool. So this, if you alt click anywhere, it's going to sample from that area and then paint it wherever your paintbrush is. So I'm just going to click right about here, and then I'm just going to do, oops. We need to be on this part. I was actually on my layer mask. I want to be on the layer. So I'm going to alt click again, and I'm just going to paint around, and you can see that pretty quickly you start to make that disappear. And now I'm going to do the same here. I'm just going to click and draw and try to get rid of some. Now that wasn't so good because we now have part of the wall there. So I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to grab right along the wall's edge here, and we're just going to go right along with it to create a new walled edge. Now the other thing that I like to use a lot of times to help clean up what might look a little funny is to use the patch tool. So it's underneath here. We're going to grab the patch tool, and we want to patch this source. I think is the way we want to go. Nope. We want to do it the other way. So let's undo that. We want to patch the destination. So basically what this is saying is I'm going to select an area, and that's going to be the destination. So I'm just going to select a small little bit here and pull it up over top of that. And you can see it's nicely patched. And we'll go and do like a little patch like this. And if we zoom out, you really can't tell too much of what's been going on there. And we'll clean up that wall edge in a minute. So now let's go back and get rid of this tire. So we'll do the same process. I'm going to use my clone stamp tool. I'm just going to clone stamp out a little bit in here, just to make it a little fresher. And we can always make our brush size a little bit bigger. So if, let's say we go like this, and we do like so. And that's our ground for right now. So now we can go back to our layer mask, and I'm going to grab my Photoshop brush. I'm going to decrease the hardness, which you can either do here by pulling down this, or you can do shift left and right bracket. So we'll just decrease the hardness all the way down, and we'll zoom back in. And here we're going to just kind of fade this in. We'll get rid of the tire area here, and we're just going to try and make this as subtle as possible without it looking too cheeseball. So sometimes you just got to kind of mess around a little bit, maybe take a step back and say, okay, that's a little dark, but we can still combine it together. So one trick that I like to do is I actually like to make copies and save at different points along the way of just different little pieces. You can use the history palette to, make a snapshot and that kind of thing, but I want to just save certain pieces to be able to alter along the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab both of these layers, and I'm just going to drag them down to the new layer button, and that's going to make a copy. And then these two new copies, I'm actually going to merge layers. And so those are now a layer, and I can shut these other two off, and now I'm just going to work with this guy. So now with our layers merged, we're going to make another mask, and then we're just going to go in with our paintbrush, and we're going to clean up the edge here. So I'm just going to zoom in, and let's just start painting away some of this. I'm actually going to shut off this background layer so I can see what's transparent and what's not. And I'm not going to be super perfectionistic with any of these edges, because it's a cobblestone street that, it's not perfect straight lines. It's kind of old feeling. It kind of blends in with the ground a little bit. So we'll just go through and do it pretty close, but we're not gonna get too caught up in the details at this point. And we can always go back and fix it later because we're doing non-destructive editing. So as you can see, we have our road going on there. It looks pretty choppy and nice, but we need to fix our road over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to quickly just grab our patch tool. I'll zoom in and we're just gonna clean up this small area here by taking and loading a selection of wall with ground. So this whole thing, we're just gonna pull this over and oops, we don't want to do that. So we need to make sure we're on our actual layer. I continually do that. It's a problem, and I'm working on it. So we'll just kind of match that up. And this just kind of blends it in a little bit. We can get rid of some distinguishing marks that would give away our pattern. So like this guy right here, we'll just grab this chunk and go right over it. And we're starting to look okay. So we got a bit of weird cobblestone-ness that we need to work with now. So we'll go back to our layer mask, zoom in, and continue painting away our problems. So, okay, so I spent a little time and I finished off patching and getting rid of the little edge of the road there. So now we have our fully extended ground. Now it's got some good variation to it, and you really can't tell that we extended it out. I mean, there's a few highlights there. I'm not saying this is amazing work. I'm doing this pretty fast. So now let's go in here and let's take our texture here, and we're gonna just move this into our comp. Again, we're gonna hit Command T or Control T, and we're gonna just scale this guy down a wee bit until we find the size that looks right for the scene. So I'm gonna go with something like this. Then we're gonna drag this behind our moped, and so you can see our wall there. And we're gonna just go right about here, and we'll just do a quick layer mask. We're just gonna make a nice big soft brush here. And then we'll just fade this into the other piece of wall. And as you can see, it's looking pretty good. We do have a nice seam there that we could use, so let's just use that. So we have our wall, but as you can see, it looks pretty fake. It looks like we've pieced it together. And part of the problem is the coloring of this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just merge down these two layers together. So now we have one layer that we're dealing with. And I'm gonna try one trick first, and we'll see how this one works. And if it doesn't work, then we'll move on to something else. So this first trick is one that I have come to enjoy. So we're gonna make a copy of one of these layers, and we're gonna shut the layer mask off, or delete the layer mask. Turn it on so we can see. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna take part of this wall that's originally part of the scene. We're just gonna do Control C, Control V, or Command. And so now we have this little chunk of wall here, and just that piece of wall. Now we're gonna go to our layer 2, and we'll turn that on. And we're gonna go up to Image Adjustments, and we're going to go to Match Color. Now I think this came around in CS2, or it might be CS3. So you may not have this part of yours, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna choose the source. So we're gonna choose our composition we're working in right now, and then we're gonna choose layer 3. And what that does is it matches the color of layer 3, which was just the wall, and matches it to this one. So now we can use our fade tool, and we can kind of fade in between. We could mess with the luminance values, and we could mess with the color intensity, so we could bring the color intensity down. So this would be one way of doing it. So we could say, okay, we like how that looks. We could turn our moped back on, and that wall looks a bit better. It looks a lot more like the original color that you can see here. And now our final step to composite it and make this right is the burn tool. Now the burn tool is a fun one, and again I'm going to duplicate this layer so I have a master and original that I can mess with later. But basically the burn tool burns things. How awesome is that? So we're going to go to our shadows, and we're just going to start burning up some of this background to make this wall seem as if it is really blending in with the scene here. So I've gone through and burned up the background a little bit, burned up the floor actually. So I did a little bit of burning in here to match up top. So there's just a lot of little subtle things that you can do to help that scene get a lot bigger. So this is just a way to extend your background, make your scene bigger. So sometimes you have to rip out your background and add a new one. Sometimes you can use the wall that pre-exists there. I chose to do it this way. And so you can kind of see that's all the burning that I've done there. And if we didn't like it, we could maybe say this is a little bit too much. We could just move it down a little bit. Just make it a little bit more subtle, or we could just move it down a whole lot, but let's say we like that. So that's one way of doing some scene extension. If you want to download the file, my original file, you can get that on the website. And if you have any questions, please leave them at the bottom. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit more about Photoshop and how to use match color and how to use the patch tool and the clone stamp tool to extend the background of your scenes. Well, this week's inspiration is a commercial that I fell in love with the first time I saw it. It's a great combination of amazing motion graphics and creativity. It's for Sherwin-Williams, I think is how you say it, the paint company. It's made by Buck, which you can find at buckla.com, I think. And they just did this commercial in such a creative way. And there's actually an interview over at the Motionographer. You can find a link for that on the website. You can check out that interview. But without further ado, check out this commercial. It's great. I love the creativity of it. Check it out. Well, like I said at the top of the show, you guys can still sign up for the film festival. You have until May 7th to put your submissions in, so make sure to submit some media. No media is not worth entering. I would love for you guys to enter it. You can enter into all sorts of different categories, and again, you can enter still images now for this series graphic category. It's no longer a package, it's just a graphic. So if you guys have any of those, make sure to submit them in. The other thing I wanted to say is there's tons of great prizes. You can win a copy of ProPresenter, a ticket to the Echo Conference, 40 videos from Igniter Media. You can win audio training from ownthemix.com. You can win a prayer wall for your website from the Prayer Engine, and you can win the first 5 videos from Daydocs. So there's tons of different stuff that you guys can win. Great prizes. I really want to encourage you guys to submit. So head over to ChurchMediaDesign.tv/contest, ChurchMediaDesign.tv/contest. You can submit there, find all the rules and information, but basically upload it to Vimeo or put your image on the web, give me the link and your information, and you're entered into the contest. So check it out today. Well, this week's freebie, as you can see behind me, is a wooden plank, kind of crazy color deal. Super simple, but I still wanted to give you guys something for you guys to download. So make sure you head over to the website. You can download that as well as the project file from this week's Photoshop tutorial. But I encourage you guys can check out that looping background, and it's in widescreen and in full screen, WMV and MPEG-4. So hopefully you guys enjoy that, so check it out. Well, thanks for tuning in to another edition of Church Media Design TV. Hopefully you guys learned a little something. I enjoyed this episode, and hopefully you guys did as well. If you guys have any questions about Photoshop or want to know more about some aspect of Photoshop, or you have any questions about how to do crazy videos or whatever it may be, send in your questions. You can email me, Brad@ChurchMediaDesign.tv. Hit me up on Twitter, twitter.com/CMDTV, Facebook.com/CMDTV, or my personal one, which is Facebook.com/Bradley.Zimmerman. Or just leave a comment on the website. That's an easy way to do it. So there's tons of different ways to do it. Download the podcast, watch it on the website, whatever you guys want to do. Thanks again for tuning in. And as for me and my favorite bobbleheaded friends, we're saying, see you later.